I'm Not Much 23,
And I'm Chaos Assassin.
and this is Gamer Experience.
And today we have a reoccurring guest of Backseat Gorilla Productions. How are you
Hello,
today?
everybody. Oh, I'm doing great, Chaos, and not much 23. Thank you guys so much for having me back. How are you all today?
Doing fine. Been busy.
I've been pretty good. Thank you for coming back on.
We enjoyed
Absolutely.
having you and said, hey, we got a odd, interesting topic, and we needed somebody else with just as much experience. So I said, why not? So today's subject is does pay to win or buying things in games ruin the experience of the games? And honestly, I think that all depends on the game.
I would have to agree with that. It really does.
I mean, it also depends on what you're buying as well. For instance, League of Legends, you can buy skins, which it doesn't affect the gameplay, but there's some of those skins that they're just cosmetics, and I don't think cosmetics ruin it, but I also don't think it also enhances either.
I very much agree with that. There's an interesting thing going on right now with Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2.0, where some of the cosmetics items are not transferring over from season to season if they
Ooh.
were purchased items. There's
So
a big
like
uproar about
season
that as well.
locked? So like they're season locked, or you buy the skin and it's only available for this season. Next season, that's not even in the game kind of thing.
I believe the latter of what you said. It's not available
Ooh,
anymore.
that's messed up, especially if you buy it. I mean, I can understand if, oh, you have so many wins, so you unlock this skin as a temporary that I can get. But if you pay physical money or whatever the in-game currency is that you grind for with certain games, that's bullshit.
Yeah, it should be unlocked forever. But you're right.
Yeah,
Also, like if it's just weapon locks or something that you got to level up every single season, sure, go for it.
yeah, that
And
that's
that
more understandable.
that kind of brings me to another topic that I'd like to talk about: the pay to win mechanic. Um, Back to the different types of games where it works and where it doesn't. The battle pass system, for instance, like that seems to work for me. It's an online game as a service type of economy. So the game itself, talking specifically about say like Warzone or Fortnite or
Where
whatever
you
else
get
it's
where you get like extra stuff for buying the battle pass.
yeah, like it's free to begin with.
Yeah, there's
So
there's
you're
the free one
already
and then there's the pay the one that you pay. Smite has the same thing.
so like with the free one, you just gotta I think about it kind of like this. Okay, so I want to unlock a specific skin. Am I gonna toss this of like $20 for a free AAA game that millions of people enjoy? Like maybe. I don't know.
Well, it's a microtransaction, but the one thing I don't like is like some of those games that, oh, if you buy now with this special thing because it's a special deal, you get this, character or this weapon that's, this really high rank that you can't get otherwise unless you pay. And it's most of those times they're actually pretty broken. Like how is that fair that this person can buy this one character that is the same rank as one of the characters I have, and yet does 6 times the damage when all I'm doing is I'm not paying. Like that to me, that ruins. If you're gonna have things like that, have things at least like the same level. Don't have an S rank character behind a paywall that is just stronger than every other S rank character you have, and even beat some like double S or the URs or whatever their system is for them.
Yeah, it's essentially paid cheating, paid God mode. It does ruin the
Exactly.
experience.
But does it ruin it for those people? I typically don't do that. The only one I'd say I do that with necessarily isn't a cheat. It's more of I don't want to spend the 5, 6+ nonstop days of grinding for these very specific relics for Warframe to try to have a chance of unlocking all of the parts for this Warframe that just got released. I'm sorry, I don't always want to do that because I don't have time to just sit and game as much anymore. So it's one of those things of, is that really cheating? I don't think it is, as it's not something that actually breaks the game. It's just I'm paying money to get early access kind of. What are your thoughts on that as far as like paying for early access for something so you don't have to necessarily grind? Would you all call that cheating?
Level skips.
It's not exactly a level skip. It's more of I'm unlocking a character that I would normally have to spend, 5 or 6 days farming the pieces to attempt to get.
Okay, basically, okay, like a time skip kind of situation.
Basically.
I've got a couple of thoughts on that. Like, if the character is super OP. I just don't think like it should be a one or the other option. You either grind for it or you don't. I don't necessarily think that should be a paid characters. I mean, something that you can pay for and just instantaneously be OP. Um,
Well, with Warframe, it's more of, okay, this is a character I've unlocked and it has its own abilities, but most of the time the ones I use to pay are the upgraded versions of those, which would be the Prime versions. So, for instance, one of the last ones I got and bought was Korra Prime. I have Korra, but I wanted Korra Prime. So she's got slightly better stats, but there's you have to grind a very specific missions to get this one relic that has a chance of dropping one of her 4 parts. And you have to do this mission, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to get the relic that does this. So, and even if you get the relic, you then have to go and do another mission to open the relic, which if it's a rare piece, me and my friends did like 7 or 8 missions, each of us trying to opening the same exact relic at the same stage to have a higher chance of getting the rare part, which is rare. But we did like 7 or 8 of those, and none of us got that rare part. And that was the one piece I needed to actually complete one of my frames. And because now it's locked away, it costs even more if I were to try to buy it, let alone try to farm for it again. It's one of those things that it's with Warframe specifically, I don't see it necessarily as cheating due to the fact of you have to do a mission to get a chance of getting the item that you then have to open by doing another mission in order to have a chance of getting one of the pieces. And there's 3 common, 2 uncommon, and 1 rare. So you have like a 1 in 6 chance, but it's not that exact of getting the one piece you would need for the Warframe you need, which itself needs 4 pieces just to build up. And then you have to farm for all of the materials as well for each of those 4 parts before you can build it. It's very grind heavy and intensive.
It sounds like it. It's an interesting question, and I really could see both sides of the argument as well as just greedy devs fiddling and trying to microtransaction you to death.
Like
And there are some games that I kind of categorize as games designed around microtransactions. They're all over the cell phones, and they put time locks on things. Like
they're considered gotcha games. Genshin Impact is probably one of the biggest ones where you have a chance of getting these characters that they introduce, but in order to get them, you have to have like so many gems, and you only get like 60 gems a day. But you need like 1,300 gems for 10 pulls, and you're not guaranteed to get whatever you're going after. Most of the time, you just get repeats of what you already have. And that's the biggest issue I have with Genshin is just the fact that it's luck based. And that's, I think, what a lot of the gotcha games are. Is there's a lot of those that are like that, but the more money you put in, the better your outcome is. And I don't see if that's necessarily greed from the developers, or is that fair to the players that they're on a tight budget? Yes, it's a free game. Yes, I understand you need to make money, but is that fair for your free to play players?
that kind of segues into another point that I wanted to bring up is listening to the commentary of players across multiple genres of games that include microtransactions. It seems as if the one overwhelming similarity between all these people is everybody wants an even playing field, which brings us back to make cosmetics items purchasable and make weapons obtainable within a certain period of time. And I think games like Quake and games like Call of Duty, like they've kind of done that properly.
And they have a skill base for some of those, but they're at the same time for some of those. All right, let's say we're both playing games and you pumped $1,000 into a gotcha game, and I only pumped in 100. Is that fair to pit us against each other in like a PvP little aspect of it?
Oh no,
I don't think so. I think if I put $100 in, I think I should be going against somebody who has put about the same amount. Is there would that be more beneficial, or would that be more of a hindrance to put people who spend about the same amount of money per month into the game? Like pit people who they dump $100 into this game every month. I know there's people out there that do it. I know like 4 people that they straight up for a while until the servers died. They'd pump $200-$300 every single month into this game. If you have people doing that, then they need to be going up against people who are doing that thing, that same thing.
I think that's happening a lot already. I think players are transitioning to private servers where they know that they will be placed against people of the same, maybe not skill set, but the same
Financial
like
set.
minds. Yeah, financial like, and it kind of it relates back to if I'm paying a premium price for a game, if I'm paying $60 for a game, put me in a premium lobby. Don't put me with all the scrubs that are out there on bot accounts, farming. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what you were getting at, I believe.
Yeah, just I'm sorry if there are people that they play games like that for just casual. They don't necessarily want to do all the PvP stuff that is mandatory in a lot of those mobile games where yeah, you get characters. I just want to sit here and just, unlock characters. That's all I want to do. I don't want to have to sit here and in order to get the stuff for this character to be powered up, I have to do things in the arena. I don't care for that. Sometimes I just want to play a game just to relax. And there's
Huh.
some games that they are like that, but does it ruin the gaming experience? And I think it boils down to what kind of game it is. I really do.
Me too.
What are your thoughts? Not much.
My thoughts are mainly that I haven't run into this, at least with video games, to say much.
That's right, because typically you just do like solo player, like city building games and like survival like games. You don't necessarily play a lot of online games where you have to go against people, do you?
No, and the games I do play, the things I mainly would pay for are actual like expansions, DLC that actually add more content. Once again, this is the Gamer Experience Midroll. If you want to send us any comments, questions, or character stories, you can send them to gamersperience@gmail.com. That's all lowercase, GamerSperience@gmail.com. Again, that's Golf, Alpha, Mike, Echo, Romeo, Sierra, Papa, Echo, Romeo, India, Echo, November, Charlie, Echo @gmail.com. I've also opened our Twitter messages for comments, questions, and stories @GamerSperience. If you do submit a character story, please include how you want us to address you, or if, the game system. Limit the story to about 5 speaking minutes, which with a normal speaking speed is between 750 and 875 words, and a statement permitting us to use your story, question, or comment on the podcast. Find our older episodes on YouTube on the Gamer Experience Podcast channel. Check out Backseat Gorilla Productions on YouTube by typing bgp.rip into your browser's address bar and press enter. Check out Backseat Gorilla, no space, on Twitch, both of them, for streams of various games, though Beat Saber is a frequent one. Now back to whatever tangent we were on.
Speaking of DLC, games that have DLCs, does that ruin the gaming experience for them? Like if you like with most DLCs, they're what, like 15, anywhere between $15 and $30, right?
Yeah.
Does not having the DLC and just playing the base game ruin the gaming experience as far as what you could be doing with this DLC?
I don't think so, because, well, it depends again on what game it is. If it's only a good game with DLC, then yes, it does ruin it. But if the base game is good and the DLCs just add more to that good base, it doesn't ruin the experience.
I
What-
agree
what
with
are
that.
You agree with that?
I do. Like, for instance, I own Destiny or Destiny
I heard
2.
I heard there's a new update coming out for that.
And currently, the previous update, the Witch Queen, it was like a $70 expansion. It's on sale for $20 now. I still
Nice.
don't own it. I'm not done with the base game. I don't care to be current on the game, so it doesn't affect me much at all.
So here's my question: at what point? Because you said you have the base game, but that's been out for a few years, right? How many DLCs and expansions are there? Is there a point that some of the like an expansion that was brand new 3-4 years ago, does that at some point become part of the base game, or do you still have to pay for those?
I think it occurs as they move, like as the number of packs increases and increases. I think they move to bundle systems on Steam, and then eventually they have a Game of the Year edition or whatever it is, where it's all included at a severely discounted price, and they just stop offering them individually.
So what happens if you let's say there's five of them, and you have two of them, and then you're missing three, but they put all those in a bundle? Do you get should there be a discount if, since you already have two of them and you're only paying for the three new ones? Should there be a discount?
Yes, and there currently is on Steam.
Really? I
Yeah.
didn't know Steam offered that. Now, is that Steam or is that the company and it just happens to be going through Steam? Because I know that I had gotten a DLC, but I didn't get the other two DLC, and I still had to pay full price for the bundle that had all three DLCs, even though I didn't need to, but they stopped offering each individual one. And I didn't care for that. I actually stopped paying or playing that game because of that. Because I didn't think it was right that, yeah, I own one of the DLCs. I don't have the other two, but the only bundle has all three. And I didn't like that. I already paid full price for the first DLC. So why should I be paying, basically triple that? Because that's what it was. It was about triple what I originally paid to get the bundle of the DLC.
I'm thinking it might be the way that it's listed. If all of the DLCs are listed individually and it's a Steam bundle and the developer agrees to a certain price reduction on the Steam bundle, that would be one thing. And then if they relist it as an all-inclusive 3-pack DLC for X number of dollars, that would in effect just cancel out the individual listings, in which case would be losing money situation. It sounds like that's what happened, but I don't know.
It wasn't through Steam, it was through PlayStation. But at the same time, I'm curious, like, how much money do companies lose for things like that?
I don't think there's any to know.
Unless
But
they release their earnings
I'm
figures,
actually
really.
curious, for any viewers or listeners, what are y'all's thoughts as far as, have y'all had an experience like that where you wanted to buy the DLCs like that and it full price? Like, what did y'all do? That's my question. Like, is this just a thing that's happened to me, or does that happen to more people? Because I'm actually curious on that, because it's one of those things that I don't feel that if the DLCs for the game that's still actively putting out DLC is like 5 or 6 years old, I don't think they necessarily should be a DLC. I think they should just be kind of integrated into the base game, because I think at that point, then instead of a game that's 6-7 years old, it necessarily, well, normally would be $60. A lot of times there's like $20, but then you pay $20 for the DLC. Whereas I think they could probably do it as, okay, for $40 you get this and this and this DLC, as they are, not one of the current DLC. Would that be a better thing, do y'all think, for companies to maybe try to integrate with more and more games becoming heavily DLC oriented?
I think that's a great idea. I think that like the Steam marketplace, it's becoming apparent through our conversation is got some differences than the PlayStation marketplace. The PlayStation Store and probably the Xbox and Nintendo Store, I know for sure. But I can speak for Steam because I use it most often, and I can say that not all, a lot of the times when an older game like we're talking about has all this DLC, they keep the price at its original retail price for a number of months, and then they'll take it and they'll put it on sale, however often per year they want to. And when they put it on sale, they typically include a lot, if not all, of those DLC packs for an all-encompassing price.
Which, that's actually something of why I'm moving more towards Steam, because there was a game I wanted to get. Sadly, I didn't have the money for at the time. Spore, normally a $20 game, but I could buy it and like all of the DLCs for like $7. For $7, I could buy the full thing of Spore and all of the DLCs for it, which I thought was fantastic. But sadly, I didn't have the money, as I was working, as my hours were all messed up at work. But that's something that I'm really liking with, as far as I think Steam has been more for the players, more so than the direct companies. And it makes me wonder of, okay, how many of the companies are they going to start integrating that, as more and more people are typically moving away from systems and heading more towards the computer side of the games due to like mods and especially with certain like Elden Ring. There are so many mods already for Elden Ring that literally it's almost more entertaining to watch people playing with mods than actual base game. And that I don't think that game's even been out a year yet, has it?
No, you're right.
I'm sorry. I love Elder Scrolls Skyrim. I really do. I have hundreds of hours base game. I can't play base game anymore now that I have it on my computer and can play with mods. I've added different spells, just made everything look more up to date and newer graphic wise, and just like I can't go back to the old game because I've gotten used to it and I enjoy it. It makes that game, really entertaining. And I think that's one of the best ones. Is I don't think they just sell Skyrim anymore. It's all Skyrim Anniversary Edition now,
Yeah.
which has all of the DLCs.
Oh,
But
if I
Skyrim's
had to
how
go back
old?
to if I had to go back to Beat Saber base game, like I just wouldn't play anymore.
Yeah.
My game's so heavily customized at this point in time, like no.
Is there any point in going back to the base game after a certain point? I mean, I understand there's some games that they're easier to mod and harder to mod depending on the coding for it. And I also know there's rules like Nintendo doesn't care much anymore if you're doing any of the GBA games and certain DS games as far as modding and changing the code on those. But if you're caught modding some of like the Switch games, especially, you can actually lose complete usage of your Switch. So you have to either jailbreak it yourself or buy a jailbroken one in order to actually get the different mods, because I know they have mods for Breath of the Wild, which some of those are actually kind of cool. But something I'm curious on is, with the gaming experience and pay to win, should game developers reach out to some of like the modding community and try to pay them to maybe make a DLC for the games? Would that be helpful or more of a hindrance to the gaming community?
I think it'd really be helpful.
I see it implemented a lot of different ways. Minecraft community has that. There's a few content creators that make their own levels, their own worlds, if you
Mhm.
will, and sell them through the official Minecraft store.
Yeah, which
And
I think is fantastic, but I think Minecraft, or Mojang more specifically, is the only one that does that. I think if for like Elden Ring, I know one of the biggest mods for Elden Ring is the multiplayer mod, where people can play with, another person as an actual multiplayer thing instead of just constantly invading their world. Like it's actually fully co-op. Should the creators of Elden Ring actually maybe try to implement that into the upcoming DLC to where people could play the game with their friends? With how heavily things are going to, as far as mass multiplayer online games, and where more and more people are trying to connect and play games with their friends, would that be something that'd be more beneficial to more game companies of making games like that could be played either solo or with other people?
I think so. If
Yeah.
if the game is really conducive to multiplayer.
What do you mean by conducive to multiplayer?
There's just some games where bringing more people in could very well be as much of a hindrance as a boon.
What are some examples?
Roller Coaster Tycoon. OpenRC22 actually does have multiplayer features. I've never used them.
So it's one of those things. So maybe simulator games aren't meant for it, kind of thing.
Yeah, or something like City Skyline, or 2 Point Hospital, or 2 Point Campus.
I think if you were gonna do a simulator game like that, you'd have a person like, okay, your duties are the roads and the electricity, whereas the other person's is building and things like that, and you have to work together in order to make a city work. I think if it like assigned that instead of just trying to fight over, no, I want the road to go this way, if you actually have to work together. I think if they were going to do multiplayer with some of those, that would probably be like the better way of doing it, just to make it kind of more to where you have to work together like you would in any actual city. You have to double check with the various contractors. You have to check with the overall city plans. There's a lot that goes into it. I think that might make it to where it's a little more fun, especially for people who enjoy those types of games.
Maybe, maybe not.
What are your thoughts, Backseat, as far as like Beat Sabers becoming multiplayer?
Oh, here we go. All right. No. So the Beat Saber community, by and large, and I say community because it really is one. Worldwide, the mods. We'll start with the mods. You can only mod your Quest systems, the consoles. They're not touchable,
Yeah,
but they do have
Yeah,
DLC, and I can get into that. So all of the mods and a lot of the maps, a lot of the environments, a lot of everything about the game is user generated. It's user made. It's mostly on GitHub. Some of it's open source. You can read over the script and everything. Some of it's not. There's Patreon mods, but the moral of the story is without the modding community and without the community communicating with the modding community and Beat Games, i.e., Meta, Facebook, they own that all the IP to Beats, and they're allowing the modders to do their thing. And in the process, they've learned a very important lesson: that's nobody knows the game better than the players, and nobody knows how to make a map better than some of the best players in the world. And they've taken these mappers and put them on the team to release official map packs that are paid content for PlayStation use and wherever else. So I think the bigger moral of the story is talent
more
is talent.
more
Where
game companies need to listen to the gamers more so than themselves, kind of thing.
it's nice to have an outside point of view. You get sucked into the same trap as a developer. You're sitting there playing the same the same level over
Mhm.
and over and over until you can do it with zero effort. And then you release it, and all the gamers out there are like, oh my God, it's too hard. That's
Yeah.
a problem. You need somebody to proofread your work. And when you listen to your community, and here's the tough one, like as a company like Activision, whoever, big
EA.
game studio, you've got to really sit there and sort through all of your applicants. And hard thing to do. You look at the numbers, people that would
Yeah.
actually apply with the qualification. So you got to look at streamers. It's people that have already proven themselves in the community.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
I think that's right. Like, I know for a fact that Nintendo has a lot of rules with that, but there's also things with Nintendo that they're kind of turning a blind eye to certain streamers who have modded some of the Switch games, because there's some of those mods that, for instance, with Pokemon, there was a fan-based game that the creator actually tried to go against Nintendo. I don't know how that turned out, but in one of the fan-made ROM hacks, they had designed several Pokemon, and with the newest installment of Scarlet and Violet, there was like 12 Pokemon that looked remarkably similar to what this person had created as far as his own Pokemon, some of his typings, and just like it's with some of them it was kind of just a color swap, but some of them there wasn't even a color swap. It was just like they took the image and just changed a type. Like at what point is that are they going to be taking advantage?
I think it's only a matter of time. Like, it's happening in so many different industries across the country. Like, I mean, the music industry, somebody writes a beat, they upload it to SoundCloud, they change one note, all of a sudden the industry.
Yep.
It happens I don't think there's anything that you can stop it unless you've got a lot of zeros in your bank account, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's one of those things of the more money having the money ruin things with that, especially gaming. And that's one of the things I really like with the mods I have for some of my games. They're all free, and I really enjoy a lot of the mods I have. And I know for a fact that there was something with Nexus mods where there was something to do with money, and a lot of people took their stuff off of that. But just like, would companies actually listen if enough people quit, or do they only care about money as far as they could just pay people to buy the game, they could survive? Like, does them having more money actually benefit us or hinder us and ruin our experience as gamers?
I think the answer to that question is kind of directly related to how the company is run, what direction they want to go in. Do they want to eat the player alive and take all of their money in microtransactions, or do they want to provide a good quality experience that will attract the customer to spend more for a little bit of, not necessarily extra benefits, but some extra fancy graphics, new
Yeah.
level, something
But
like that.
at
Maybe
the
maybe a
same
special
time,
arena where all of those OP guns that you buy, everybody can play together in that special OP arena together.
yeah. But at what point is it gonna turn into like, oh, okay, like with like EA? EA is known for a bunch of microtransactions, basically the same game being released every year with just one or two different characters. I mean, over time, full rosters change, but it's the same game. But at the same time, look at Bethesda with how many iterations of Elden Ring?
I thought Elden Ring was by
Or
first.
not Skyrim. Skyrim, not Elden Ring.
As
There's
long
so
as it's
many different.
profitable.
I mean, let's be honest. Everybody's still waiting for that Elder Scrolls 6, which supposedly is actually in the process.
Just like Grand Theft Auto 6.
What are you talking about? They had a full block in Grand Theft Auto 6. But my issue with those is, okay, we've been waiting so long for those games to release the next version. Is it going to turn into something like it did with Borderlands 3?
They released it and it sucked.
Basically, they promised all this cool stuff and it was garbage. I got it I bought, the big fancy version, which was supposed to give me a bunch of stuff. I never got all that stuff. A lot of people didn't get the stuff. They, within the first week, nerfed the same character like 7 times to the point that you were constantly having to switch and try to find the new, strength of it, because they just kept nerfing him further and further into the ground instead of, buffing the other people to be on par. I understand, balancing it out because he was so broken he could one tap some of the bosses. I get, tuning him down. But then they started doing it to all the other characters except for one character who was just so weak and so bad that they basically brought all of those characters to his level. It's just like, okay, why? They promised all this stuff and they just didn't deliver. I played for less than a month and I was just like, no, this isn't what I paid for. And it's just one of those things of, is the next Elder Scrolls or next GTA going to turn out like that? Or are the gaming companies going to realize, hey, they messed up, let's not do that?
I
think-
think the people making the big financial decisions probably have their heads so far up their asses that all they breathe are their own farts.
What are your thoughts, Backseat?
I think that the studio will continue to produce a game as long as it's profitable for the studio, or unless another more profitable business venture comes up. And since we're talking about GTA, we can talk about a cycle here. We've got GTA that comes out, let's just say arbitrarily, every 10 years. It's not true, but let's say we have, even a 5-year cycle. So we'll have 5 years of GTA, and in the background, we've got Rockstar, blah, 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 developing Red Dead 3. And then we have other companies, other divisions of Rockstar developing filler games, are, contributing to other companies and other studios' games. So the release schedule is timed out. And if it flops, it flops. And there are game series that are dead. They're just not making any more sequels because of those reasons.
Like BioShock.
Yeah, like BioShock. Quake. Like, there may be a Quake 5 at some point in time, but Quake 4 was like such a flop and the game's just dead. Why? Why would you make a new one?
And then there's Valve that just cannot count to 3.
But it's like one of those things of, okay, if I know right now Bethesda's big thing is Elder Scrolls Online, which I like the premise of it, but I don't like the execution. I really don't. But that's a personal thing with me. But what if they've just focused going from solo games to just the MMO and just kind of don't touch a 6th Elder Scroll, because they don't need to make another one like that because they have their cash cow as an MMO? Is at some point GTA doesn't GTA have a MMO aspect where you can play online and stuff?
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's
it's
why I
huge.
think Grand Theft Auto 6 hasn't been out yet
Because they're so focused on the MMO aspect of it instead of the solo games.
yeah, and because it's making Rockstar probably a whole fuck ton of money.
Yeah, it's something that's referred to as games as a service. The base game is free, but there's so many microtransactions and it's always online that you end up paying for the experience one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the industry is trying to head. I mean, that benefits the company so greatly. Like, why would you want to limit yourself to making $60 per disc sold? And I know we're not really selling discs anymore, but why would you limit yourself to that? Why not
But at
give
the
away
same
the
time,
game for
is
free and then make people pay $30 to unlock all the characters and make people pay another $30 to unlock the guns and another $30 for 5 extra levels and blah
but
blah,
at what point does that get to? I don't know how to describe, but like here, basically let's give this game that's the equivalent of Pong. If you want to go up to Pac-Man with it, you have to pay $20. If you want to go from Pac-Man to say Donkey Kong, that's an additional $20. Up now we're going to like N64, but not as good as graphics. Like at what point is it okay, is the company just doing a cash grab or money grab to try to get as much money to actually, get to the point that we're playing this game that's in high resolution versus the base game, which is, like Pong? Like, at what point is, okay, do we as gamers need to say, hey, no, we understand you need money. How about you make a good game?
So you're asking at what point does it become overly exploitative?
Yes.
The marketplace would tell you that when the gamers and the players stop paying money and when the company's base level offer is unattractive, nobody buys it.
Yet
But then
people are
on the
still
flip
buying
side,
Elden Ring.
but on the flip side, if the
Or-
end goal is supremely attractive,
Yeah.
where's the middle ground? And that's where we're at with, I think, what is the industry standard of a $60 price point for a AAA game that's slowly increasing to 70 over the summer.
Yeah.
So $70. That's my answer.
Honestly, I think if games are actually going to continue like that, if companies are actually moving more towards the MMO aspect and the paying for the experience, then something that some companies might want to do, something like similar to what Nintendo does, is take older games and update the graphics and stuff. I think some of that might be beneficial, but sell the game at more of a reduced costs. For instance, some of the Tomb Raider games. I say Tomb Raider because Elfness enjoys the Tomb Raider games, but the control mechanics for it are so messed up because they were for PlayStation 1. At what point, okay, could they maybe take a already dead franchise or a very small niche and just kind of revamp, give it a facelift and resell it at like $30?
I think that happens on Steam a lot.
Well, I know for some of like the Tomb Raider games, I could buy them for like $4 or $5, but like actually go in, take it and give it a facelift, give it a little bit more modern graphics. I'm not saying like cyberpunk level new graphics, but I'm saying like, okay, take the PlayStation graphics and maybe bring it up to like a PlayStation 3. Give Tomb Raider a facelift up to like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, for instance, where it's still, old looking because, sometimes it's just an issue with coding, but also like update the control. So it's easier. So some of the people that actually do enjoy some of those games might have a better chance of going back because their version of it doesn't work anymore. Or people might find, or with the newest generations, like, ooh, that's kind of a cool game. I didn't know that was a thing. Let's try it.
I just recently purchased a copy of Final Fantasy VII with remade graphics for PC.
Yeah.
I mean,
And Final Fantasy is a big thing. But like, let's take like Gauntlet Legends for the N64. There's a lot of people nowadays that they are unaware of that game. They really are. I'm pretty sure Nintendo could actually make some money if they were to update, say, Donkey Kong 64 and re-released it.
I agree.
I'm not saying they could do that with any of them.
Tropical Freeze, and it kind of
Well, that's fair, but that was a brand new game, wasn't it?
It was originally released on the Wii U, I believe.
Yeah, but it's still one of those things that just like anything on the Wii U didn't do great because a lot of people didn't realize that the Wii U was an actual system in itself. A lot of
Yeah.
people that was an issue marketing wise.
Well, even
I
like
have the Wii U. I actually enjoyed the Wii U. I know I would love to see a transfer over with like Twilight and Skyward Sword over to the Switch because it'd be nice to sit there and play those games. But at the same time, Nintendo has this thing of only redoing a game once after it does it. The only exception is Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee. But in all actuality, Let's Go Pikachu is just a remake of Yellow, not Red and Green, or with the American versions being Red and Blue because the name for green also means blue, or it did. I think they changed that. But that's why there's in the Japanese is red and green, and here in the Americas and everywhere else it's red and blue.
I investigated that, and that's not true. For Pokemon Green, they use Midori and not Owie, which I could understand a mistranslation with Owie, but not Midori.
Really?
Yeah,
I wonder if they changed it because I think that was there was something with the mistranslation because of the words or something. I don't remember. It's been too long since I've looked into that.
I looked at pictures of the original advertisements.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and it uses the kanji for Midori and not Owie.
Interesting.
so
I think
have a
if
question.
what's up?
We talked earlier about Game of the Year editions and stuff like that. It's been my experience that they typically optimize the code to make it run more smoothly and sometimes include some graphical improvements in those titles. And they do release those at that Game of the Year price, whatever it is, $40 or whatever. Is that fair, I guess, in your opinion?
I think so.
I'd say it depends on when the game was released. If the game was released in less than 2 years, I don't think there should be a Game of the Year edition. But at the same time, a lot of those Game of the Years are top selling games, so that's why they get that special update. But I think that if they're going to be having a Game of the Year, which I do enjoy the idea of that sometimes. I think they should have a like a retro redo, like call it like a retro redo, where they take a game that it's 15 plus years old, and they just optimize it and maybe update it to where it's a little more modern. So it might have a chance of getting some of the people who like they play Fortnite and stuff like that, but have it to where they might be able to play something new, and so it's not as necessarily just for one target audience of the people that are old enough to actually remember when it originally came out.
So we're kind of back to we should probably include all of the DLC that's ever been released for that game in that package for that reduce.
Yeah, because
I'm sitting here thinking about a conversation that I watched it on YouTube. It was between a very famous pro skater with a video game franchise,
oh
and he was talking to one of the publishers or some suit in one of these companies, and did an interview. And they said, so he got this call one day, and he had to meet his contact at the developer at a restaurant, and they ate lunch. And they explained to Tony that the game had sold so many copies, it had achieved such a level of success that because of that, they were putting it in this lower tiered price point, this Game of the Year edition. And for the company, that meant more volume of sales at less money. So they realized that the brand new shiny had worn off, and it warranted the reproduction of the game with included bonuses, unlockables, etc. And they paid Tony right there on the spot for it. But I found that interesting from that perspective, how the company.
yeah, which I can understand that, but there's some things that I like let's for that instance, there are certain classical games that they are still worth a lot of money. They are still heavily sought after. First one that comes to mind that just recently did have one. Crap, I forget the name, but it's D&D based.
Baldur's
I
Gate.
don't. Yeah, Baldur's Gate. That just recently got a complete thing because trying to find an original any of those games for the PlayStation 2, you're going to be looking at a higher price than a brand new game for some of those because they're just that sought after. I think if they were to, with Smash Brothers, since they added Banjo and Kazooie, if they were to redo Banjo and Kazooie, which was originally released for the N64 for like the Switch, a lot of the adults would definitely buy that because almost nobody has an N64, let alone them have a copy of Banjo and Kazooie to actually play that game. I think companies, if they were to look at some of the games that are really high in price for the original things and to do a retro thing for it, they could actually probably make a lot more money on just updating older games. Since, that's what television wants to do with everything is, redo all these television shows that were big successes. Other than at that point, at what point is it just going to upset the fans that they can't make anything original?
Yeah, I think that we're in a really good time to live as far as the gaming world because we've got so many different consoles over so many different generations. And for the most part, if you know what you're doing, you can play any game.
Yeah.
Except for console exclusive. And with the modding community out there making a lot of these older games better.
Yeah.
It is what it is. If the first party wants to make something that rivals or even is better than some of this user generated content, I encourage that. Sure. If you want to remake something that's 20 years old, like if they came up with a remake of Contra and released it for like, I don't know, a reasonable amount of money, I would pay for them.
Yeah.
I'd probably
definitely
still play a ROM hack because they're fun. But,
Yeah.
I would support that.
Yeah. If they came out with Gauntlet Legends, like the original Gauntlet Legends off the N64 with updated graphics and everything, I would definitely play it, especially if they made it to where, because normally you could play with up to 4 people. If they made it to where you could do online play with that, I know for a fact they'd have at least 3 sales because I would buy it, my dad would buy it, my dad would probably buy it for my sister, and we would all play Gauntlet Legends together because that's something growing up me and my dad would do. We would play Gauntlet Legends together on the N64, and we loved it. I'd love for them to bring back like Pokemon Puzzle because I'm sorry, I actually really enjoyed Pokemon Puzzle, but I'd also would love for them to do, say, like another Pokemon Stadium or Stadium 2 or Coliseum or XD Gales of Darkness. I didn't care for Revolution, but they haven't done a game like that because they've never been really big sellers. But I actually really enjoyed them, and I know a lot of people who do enjoy those games. Especially, if they were to do a Stadium remake, but add all of the Pokemon, and it's literally just different types of battles, that would be something that you could move the competitive scene from the Pokemon games and literally just have that on to one thing. So you could transfer from any of your games, these great Pokemon over to it, similar to how they have like Pokemon, what is it, Pokemon Home, I think, right now? Just have it to where, yeah, I'm just going to bring this over from this gen, and that would change the entire competitive Pokemon field. And yeah, things would have to get banned, but there's some things that their power creep was so high, it matches that of current, banned Pokemon. Like there's an original tactic with a simple Bidoof using acupuncture where it was just absolutely busted. That in its prime, I believe, is as strong as some of the stuff they do now with certain things. But then you could get some of the moves and stuff that you can't get normally. For instance, a lot of people don't realize this. Back in Crystal, Pikachu could learn Zap Cannon, but at that time it was a little bit higher accuracy. That was the only game he could learn that in. So having a Pikachu now, or even a Raichu with Zap Cannon, would be absolutely disgusting, especially with the new items of the Light Ball. There are certain moves that the Pokemon could only learn it for like 1 or 2 games, but then afterwards they just couldn't learn them anymore. For instance, Charizard, one of the biggest things well known with Charizard, has wings, yet in Gen 1 could not learn Fly. Seen in the anime, flying around, yet could not learn Fly, which is hilarious. But Scyther can. A Pidgey can. A Pidgey can learn Fly to fly you around, but Charizard can't.
I'd really hate to have to cut this short, but we're approaching about an hour.
Yeah, that sucks.
And I'm also introducing New element. Well,
Oh?
it's based on last episode. It's the item of the month from Lawful Goodwill.
Ah, yes.
And the Lawful Goodwill item this month is the Trench Coat of Illusion. Allows 2 to 3 small creatures to appear as a medium humanoid. Mage hands appear at the end of the sleeves to complete the illusion. The wearers need to succeed at a DC 15 deception check to pass. And the
Yeah,
price tag-
sir. I'd like to see your ID for the adult movie you're attempting to buy. That's literally how I could see it, is children getting a hold of that and just, pretending to be an adult.
Of course, I don't know if they have the skill to pass the deception or bluff check in Pathfinder.
I don't know. Have you seen certain kids?
Would they also be able to get 3 gold to buy it? Because that's how much it costs.
Let's be honest. Somebody would probably steal it. And are we talking first edition Pathfinder or second edition?
Probably
Because a gold in first edition is not that hard to get.
most likely second edition,
Okay, that's a little harder to get.
because this was written for D&D.
Yeah. I still can see just children. Imagine goblins. Goblins doing that and then setting fire to things. It wasn't the goblins. It was that human. A human walked in. Goblins ran out. The goblins are the victims. Wait a minute. Where'd the human go? Wait a minute. Oh, you could have shenanigans with an item like that.
But again, Sean, thank you for joining us for yet another episode.
Thank you all for having me. It's been a blast.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks for talking and giving your input on, whether or not pay to win affects the gaming experience, and then the help with the tangent I went on, because I'm good at those.
Of course, you can find his streams on Backseat.
That's right, guys. Backseat Gorilla on YouTube, twitch.tv/Backseat Gorilla, and 3 letters, 1 dot something something. I forgot my own tagline, but you can go to
BG.
www.bgp.rip and it'll take you right to my.
That's amazing that you know the exact actual parts of it that actually I could never do that. I
But
could
I can
never
tell you.
remember.
I'm not much 23,
I'm Chaos Assassin.
and this
I'm
was
back.
Gamer Experience.